Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is the next video in the additional skill RPA developer series where we are exploring the databases. In case you are new to the channel and you haven't already subscribed, please consider subscribing to the channel to get the latest update. In the previous series of this playlist, we have covered how I can connect to the database, how we can execute the queries, and in the recent one, we have seen how I can insert a data from Excel to a database. In case you are not familiar with any of this, I would request you to watch this video to understand the basics. Also, in case you are new to the SQL Server and you do not understand the basics of databases and you do not have the SQL Server installed, you can watch this other playlist, which is the database basics of SQL Server, where I am showing you how to install the SQL Server and showing you the basics of databases, right? Having said that, let's get to the agenda of today's video. Today we are going to discuss an activity which is called the bulk update, which means that if I already have a data which is available in my SQL Server and I want to update the data in bulk, how I can do that using a single activity, right? So that would be our agenda. So the first thing first, I'm going to my SQL Server Management Studio. This is the same database, guys, which we have been working on, and I have a table which is called dbo.products, right? If I simply go here and I say select star from products and I execute this, you would notice that I have some set of data for pen, eraser, marker and notebook, right? For the simplicity purpose, I have just removed all the data and I am remaining only with the 4 records. Okay, so this would be our table which we would be working, and we will try to see how does a bulk update works on this table. The next thing for this tutorial is I have got an Excel file in my d:\data which I call the SQL insert, and this is the data which is available in the file, right? So this is exactly the same which we have seen in the database. Let me quickly show it to you. So yes, this is exactly the same data, right? 211 pen, eraser, marker, and the numbers are exactly the same, right? So as of now, let's say I have a requirement where I want to update this table directly, right? I want to just manipulate the Excel and I want to update the same in the database, right? So for the sake of simplicity, let's make the price something so that we can differentiate, right? So I'll make it to 1000, 2000, 3000 and 4000 here, and the quantity, let's make it to 10, 20, 30 and 40. I'll do a control plus S and I'll save the Excel, right? So our idea would be that if I have some data which is already available in the database and I have to update the same from an Excel, how we can do that? Okay, so two things I have got a database with a table which is having this record. The same set of records are available in that Excel, and the Excel we have kept in one location. Okay, now to get started with the coding, I'll go back to my UiPath Studio. This is the same solution which we have been working from the previous project as well. So the first thing first, if you are looking to this video for the first time, to get started with the database automation, you need to have this dependency which is called UiPath.database.activity. If you do not have this activity, you would not get the activities which are related for databases, right? So if I go here and I search for database, I am getting this activity because of these dependencies, right? How to add it? Just watch the first video in the playlist. Okay. So for the bulk update, let me go to the design and I'll create a new sequence. It's always good to start with a new and a blank sequence, and I'll call this as bulk update and I hit create. We'll wait for the sequence to get load. Okay. Once the sequence is available here, the first thing is we need to connect to the database, right? So first thing first is we need to connect our UiPath Studio to this database. So to connect, I'll go to the project, activities, and I have something which is called connect to database. Drag and drop this activity here. What does this activity does? This simply connect you to the database. Once we have this connect to database activity available, we have two options to connect to the database. We can use this configure connection, use the connection wizard, or we can provide the connection string. All of this we have already explained in the first video, so I'm not going to spend much time there, and I'm simply going to copy paste the existing connection which we made in the first video. Okay, so don't worry, I'll explain it to you quickly. So if you see, this activity is same. Whenever you use this activity and you click on configure connection, with the help of connection wizard, we get something which is called a SQL database connection, which looks something like this, right? It is telling me that I am connecting to this data source, SQL Express, which is nothing. If you go to the database, this is the same thing, right? Laptop CURN4H72 SQL Express. Then it is telling me that I am connecting to the UiPath database, which is nothing but your initial catalog, right? Which means that this database, SQL Server might have multiple databases. So initial catalog means which database you want to connect, right? So I have connected to the UiPath database. Integrated security is equal to true, which means that I am using Windows authentication, right? So that way my activity knows that I have to connect to this database. Till this point, I have not mentioned which table to work upon, right? All of this we have explained in detail, so please watch the previous videos to get more insights. Okay, now connect to the database. Once it is connected successfully, you will get something which is called a connection object, right? So hit Ctrl+K and create a variable called db connection, right? If everything works fine and it is able to connect, you will get the connection in this object which is called db connection. If you go to the variables, you would see that this is a database connection object. Okay, now once your database is connected, the next thing is we want to update this table which was here, this guy, with the data which is coming from Excel, right? So first thing first, we need to read the data from the Excel. So to read the data from the Excel, we have Excel activities, right? So I'll go here and I'll use Excel application scope, because I do not want to close Excel every time, right? So I'll use Excel application scope here. It is asking me, tell me where is your workbook. I'll click on this folder button, and we know that our Excel is located in my D drive, data and SQL insert, and I hit open. Next, I have to guide the Excel that where exactly is the sheet, right? Without that, how would it know that which sheet I want to read, right? So now you would see I am getting two read range because I am using Excel application scope. So I will use this Excel read range from here, right? There is a dedicated playlist on Excel application automation. If you are not aware of, I have put the links in the description for your reference. Okay, now for the read range, what is the name of the sheet? The name of the sheet is sheet 1, so that's perfectly fine. I want to read all the data. Let's go to the properties, and does my data have headers? It's tick mark. Yes, we have the headers, right? And I won't leave this to the default settings, and the output I want to store in a data, right? So I hit Ctrl+K, that is the shortcut, hit dt_input. Okay, so I think that's not created. I'll hit a Ctrl+K again and hit dt_input and hit enter. Okay, now I am going to the variables and I can see that yes, I have got this extra, so I'll delete this. Okay, so dt input is created and connection is created, right? So this looks good. Okay, now the next thing is I want to insert the data directly in the database, and as we discussed, we are going to do it with the help of bulk update, right? So I'll go to the activities, and here if I just search for database, I am getting something which is called bulk update, right? So drag and drop that activity here like this. Okay, now this is again a direct thing, right? So whenever you are working with the bulk update activity, you can configure the connection directly in this configure connection as well, and this opens the same wizard for you. One other thing is, if you have already connected to the database, you no need to connect it to again and again, right? So what you can do is, if you see, the output of this activity was a connection object, db connection. that connection object can be directly passed to the bulk update as well. So when I click on bulk update, I go to the properties. In the connection configuration, it is asking me, do you want to provide me a connection string? Do you want to provide me an existing connection, or you want to have this detail set up again? I have all the options available. Since I am already using this connect activity and I have an existing connection, so all I have to do is, in the existing connection, I just have to pass the DB connection, right? One another way is that you can always go to here, get this connection string, provider name, these guys, copy them and pass them to the bulk insert activity as well. Existing connection string and provider name, that will also connect you to the database, right? So the idea is simple. We have to tell UiPath which database and which SQL server I want to execute. Okay, so with the help of connection string, it is done now, right? So now we understand that bulk update will happen on this server and this database, right? But now a database can have multiple tables such as employees, product, temp DB. How do we know that, right? So that input has to be given here, which is called table name. What is the name of your table, right? So for us, the table name should match, and the table name is products. Copy this and paste it here, right? So this is the table name of the SQL server. The next thing, it is asking me, where is your data table? Data table is a collection of rows and columns, right? Which table or which data you want to upload. So where is my data table? So if you remember, when I read the data from the Excel, with the read range in the output, you get the data table, which is called DT input. All you have to do is just pass this table here like this, right? So I'm not getting DT input here, I think because of the scope. So I'll click here, the variables, okay. In the read range, the DT input is scope is restricted only to the do part, okay. So I'll just increase the scope to bulk update, okay. I'll hit Ctrl+S, and now here in the data table I will write DT input, right? So that way this activity knows that I have to update the product table with this data table which is coming from Excel. Now it is not necessary that you always have to read the data from Excel. It can be from a data scraping, you can do it from SAP, you can do it from, let's say, web browser, you can do it from mainframe. The idea is you need to have a data table which is compatible to your SQL, okay. Next in the activity, we have something which is called column used for the matching rows. It is an very important properties, and I am going to show you how by just adding or removing the columns in this can change your automation, okay. So please pay some attention here. It is asking me, tell me the columns which are you going to use for matching the rows, right? So if I go to my database, you can see that I have product ID, product name, segment, price and quantity, and here I have the same set of data, right? Now it is asking me which column should I refer to match the data. So as we can see clearly here, the product ID is something which is matching. So we can say that wherever you find the product ID matching, just update the data, right? So if I go to the property, you would notice that the column used for matching rows is an array of string, which means that it is not always necessary that I have to put one column. I can put a collection of columns, or I can say that I can put multiple columns as well, right? So let's first start with a single column. I'll go here and open this in advanced editor, and I am telling that you use this column, which is product ID, and I'll go here and it's a string and the input is a string array. I simply have to put this bracket, so that way this becomes a string array, okay, and I hit OK, right? Now We have told the activity that you go to this table, update this data table, and for matching the column, use this. Question arises, I as a developer, how would I know how this activity has performed, how many rows got updated, what happened to the rows, how many rows got affected, right? So if you are watching from the previous tutorial, you would notice that all of this activity has something which is called affected rows, which is an integer variable, right? So I'll simply go here, hit Control plus K and create a integer variable called int underscore affected rows, right? That will give me how many rows got impacted, right? And to print those, I am going to use a log message activity. This would be of type info, and here I'd simply write an expression which says that total rows affected, hit a plus, specify the int affected rows dot toString and hit OK, right? That way, once this automation is completed, I should get that message in my output panel. Okay. So that is pretty much, I think we have completed the automation. So let's quickly refresh this table. I have 100, 345, these numbers here. Excel is having 1000, 2000, so that we can clearly differentiate. Quantity is 10, 20, 30, 40, right? I'll hit Control plus S. I'll go back to the activity here. In the bulk update, we have specified everything. Let's do a Control plus S. Go here and say run the file. Okay. We'll wait for the automation to fire up. If everything is working perfectly, we should get the row number updated, and you can see that the total rows affected were 4. This is coming from this activity, right? So total I had got 1, 2, 3, 4 rows, right? So let's go to the database. I'll keep this Excel here. As you can see, the numbers are still here because I have not refreshed the query, and I simply click on execute. And you can see that 1000, 2000, 3000, 4000 is updated in the respective record. That means our bulk update is working perfectly, right? If you guys are able to follow along till this point, I would request you guys to please like this video and let me know in the comments that yes, you have reached till this point and you understood the concept. Okay, I'll wait for your comments. Now there are some things which we need to take care when using this activity, right? My data set was pretty small, right? So I could easily see that the data was updated perfectly. Now just pay attention here. What happens if I make two IDs, right? So if you see here, 211 is for pen, and in the Excel I have made two entries for 211, right? And we are telling my UiPath Studio that the column is the product ID which you should use for matching. Now if I go here and if I try to execute, what should happen? Ideally, when UiPath will come to this Excel, it would notice that product ID is for this column also and product ID is for this column also. Which one should I update? Right? Let's see what happens in this scenario, right? So what we have done for 211, I have got two records in the Excel, and here 211, the actual record is pen, but here the second record is eraser and the first record is pen, right? So let's see what happens. I'll go back to my Excel, the automation, and I'll simply say run the file. Okay. We'll just wait for this automation to complete. So that is the concept of the matching columns which you guys need to understand. Okay, it says 4 rows affected. So if I just do a quick refresh here, you would notice 211 value was updated with the latest value which was available in the Excel. So what actually happened? Total 4 rows got affected. How? First, it came to this one. It updated 211 with the pen stationery 1000 here. Then it found one more record with 211, right? Because we told only to match the product ID. And then it updated the second record with 211 eraser stationery. So that way you have got this record updated with whatever the latest was available here, right? So that means it is not safe to use only one column. This can be used when the column is primary and you know that I cannot have a duplicate product ID. But let's say take this example where I am saying UiPath that yes, we can have duplicate product ID, and now I want to only update a specific record. How we can do that? Okay, so let me first go to my this actual database and I'll just make duplicate records. Okay, and then I'll show you how can we justify the same thing with the new column update as well, right? So I'll simply go and edit these columns. I'll make this to 211 as well, and I'll call this as pen, right? And this is pen, eraser, stationery, and let me make this price to 123, and I'll make this price to 456, make the quantity to 10, and here I'll make the quantity to 45, something like. I'll just do a control plus S. And now I have got two records in the database, right? Now if I have the same situation and I want to only upload, or I would say update only the correct one, how we can do that? That is what I'm going to show, right? So this is your data which is in the database. I hope you understood the problem statement. Now I'm going to give you the solution, right? So this is the same table, and now my requirement is I only want to update this record. Now I'll just simply go to the Excel and I'll make sure to update this to, let's say 5000. I'll update this to 6000. I'll update the quantity to 500, and here I'll update the quantity to 600, right? Now my requirement is when I specify I want the correct record to be updated, but if I simply put here product ID, you would have noticed that it is updating the incorrect values, right? So for that, if you see here, if I instruct UiPath to make a combination, right? 211 and eraser is one combination, 211 and pen is one combination. So that way it knows that yes, this record and this records are two separate records. When I just put a product ID in the column here, this product ID, UiPath is not able to understand whether I have to update this or this, right? Because the product ID is exactly the same. But you have an option to make it in a pair like this. Like this. You can make it for 3 as well. You can make it of anyone, right? So for us, let's make the pair with product ID and product name. So I'll take this product name, copy this, go back to UiPath. In the column used for the matching rows, put a comma here and pass the product name. Now what is happening here? I am telling UiPath that when you are using the bulk update, make sure you use these two columns as references, right? So product ID and product name. Okay, I'll hit OK. Let's do a control plus S, and I'll go here and I simply say run the file. Okay, the automation completed and total rows affected equal to 4. If I go to the Excel and let's move to the database and hit a refresh. Now you would notice here the numbers are exactly the same. 211 eraser is 5000, 500, 211 pen is 6000 and 600. But if you simply remove this one variable from here like this and do a control S and just run the file, right, you would notice that the data is getting overridden with the latest records. Okay, so let me quickly show it to you again so that your concept is clear, right? I have again executed the same automation just by removing one column, right? Total rows affected equal to 6, right? Now if I go to the database and execute, now you would notice here 211 pen was first updated with this value and then it got overridden here, right? So that is the concept of column used for matching rows, right? So you can use just a string of array, you can put a comma and just keep on adding the columns, right? So this is very important property you need to take care of. Okay, so for your information, there is one property in this activity which is called bulk/back update, right? So by default this is on, I have toggled this off, right? So what this activity does, it actually reads this complete thing. Okay, it creates a temporary table in the SQL and then it tries to make a inner join with this table. But when it creates a temporary table in the SQL, sometime what happen, your data is in a number format, sometime it might be at a journal format, sometime it may be at a other format, right? So if any of the column is not matching, you would get an error, right? How does that look like? If I simply go here and I same automation, I am just making this as take, I am telling SQL to create a temporary table and then update. Let's see what happens. I'll go here, save everything and run the file. Okay, so now we have instructed this activity to create a temporary table in SQL, create a join and then update. But sometime if the data is not matching, you will get this error which says the provided columns in the data table do not match the column type of the database, right? So that is why the join is failing. And why the join is failing? Because you have instructed to make the join. If you are not trying to make a join and if you say that okay, just update it, I'll just remove this from here and let me just save this, go here and I say run the file. That way now SQL is or UiPath is not going to create that temporary table. The join will not happen directly, an update query would be fired and it's executed, right? So just this property check and uncheck can change your automation. Okay, so that is what pretty much I wanted to cover for this tutorial. To know more about this activity, we can always go to this guy which is called docs.uipath.com and just read about the bulk update, right? So just go, let's skim through this information. Updates a compatible data table. This is important. We have seen compatible data table into an existing table. This activity also updates all the columns that are not in the collection of the columns named as primary key, returns the number of rows affected. Okay, continue on error. You know that if I want to still continue or no, boolean property. Connections we have already executed. We have already seen that connection string can be provided, existing connection, provider name and the secure connection string, right? Bulk update or this if you want to create a temporary table or not, right? Now to insert you have something which is called columns name, very much important. The data table, it can be from SQL, it can be from a different table, it can be from Excel, it can be from a web scraping, and the table name is the actual table name of the SQL, and lastly the affected rows, right? This complete information is available on the docs.uipath.com. To navigate here you simply have to right click on this activity and click on help. Okay, so that is pretty much for this video. I hope now you understand the concept of the bulk update, how do you use it, what are the things to take care of, and more importantly, how do you use the column used for matching rows. If you have any more questions, any more doubts, feel free to drop me a note in the comments or you can write me an email as well. Okay, so I would like to wrap this video here. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please do subscribe to the channel and happy automation.